I guess thinking about coffee and a case note, um, I also like the fact that a lot of time we learn from doing as well. So it makes a lot of sense. And I think a lot of people approach content sometimes just from a pure sales and marketing hat and pure sales hat. And I see it all the time. They divide up. This is the marketing bit over there for the law firm, and this is the BD and relationship bit, and this is this bit. And where actually a lot of the content is the learning aspect. It's experimenting by making the content. Now, you might not even put it out, but even articulating it is learning for you, and you actually become a better lawyer by saying it and by making the case note. And that's one of the aspects of which people miss. And I think especially in professional services and especially in law, when from a personality perspective and a lot of things are, a lot of people like to see things in silos instead of being interconnected. And that learning aspect makes a hell of a lot of sense. You were that associate running around because you wanted to learn. And well, that's what I would see anyway. And to learn, you needed to articulate it. And then you realize that articulating it could actually help other people as well and build trust through that.
I completely agree. And it sort of works in two ways that, these are all cases I would have read anyway, right? If I wasn't doing an online quote marketing project. But the fact I'm doing an online quote marketing project is that as I'm reading, I'm also doing the analytical process of thinking, right, I'm okay to read 600 paragraphs and take however long it takes to read 600 paragraphs of a fairly complex judgment. But if I'm going to communicate this in less than 6 minutes, what is the heart of this? What is the meat of this? If I'm going to read 111 paragraphs of valuation evidence, how do I describe that in a sentence? And that sort of almost like journaling. Like I don't keep a journal, but I've almost realized that these case notes that I sometimes type up are more or less me recording what I've taken from these cases. The more of these fact patterns I'm not only reading, but also processing and then communicating and then answering questions about because people have questions allows me to refine my approach to how legal decisions are handed down and frankly, how judges think. And so, those bits of advice you used to get in law school of like, oh, think like a judge, approach things like a judge, did not make sense to me for about 10 years until I had read the, the appropriate number of judgments, whatever it is, 100 or, 200 or 500 or whatever it is, and had gone through them in such a communication focused way so that each thing I read, I forced myself to understand and then forced myself to reflect on what's the easiest way to communicate what the judge is saying here. And the best way to get to think like a judge is to read the thoughts of judges, which are published, reams and reams of them published daily. And so that process of engaging with fact patterns and law that are going to be relevant to my current and future client base, and then processing the problems that other parties in the position of my clients have faced, and then processing the thought processes of judges who deal with those problems necessarily means that I'm just refining my expertise. And there was a time when I thought of myself in practice as like the scariest, baddest monster out, because you might beat me this year, but next year I will have learned 100 more things and look out. And now I think of myself as almost the opposite of, I will try to teach you and tell you everything that is in my head. And I'm going to be as approachable and open to going back and forth with you as possible, because the moment I close my mind to being wrong, the moment I close my mind to being wrong is the moment I stop learning stuff.
Yeah.
And so that shift also happened in about 2018 of not being like, yeah, I know it and I'm right, into like, hey, I think it's this because of this. And if I find out that I'm wrong on either point, great, I've learned something.
Yeah.
And so it's been not merely a siloed marketing piece, as you rightly raise as a problem, Michael. It's also been a fundamental professional development piece as well. And I'm deeply grateful for both. It's also fun, I should say, for anyone who's thinking about it.
Absolutely, mate. So I guess you started in 2018. When did the penny drop in terms of, this is interesting, I've got something here? Because then I remember early on you talking about your strategy. I think we were having a beer in Sydney or Melbourne, actually.
Melbourne. We're having a beer in Melbourne.
Yeah. And you were outlining the strategy. And I thought, wow, this guy has got it together. He's got a strategy. It's, so when did that penny drop, man?
Yeah. So I can actually put my finger on the time quite clearly. So about May 2018, I started doing written case notes on LinkedIn, and then LinkedIn only allowed you to publish 1,300 characters. So even 1,300 characters is quite short for a complex judgment. So even that process was good. Then it was September 2018 that I did my first coffee and a case note, and I had the privilege/problem of the first one blowing up. And the first one got about 11,000 views and 180 likes on the first day, which was early LinkedIn numbers, right? Early LinkedIn content publisher numbers. And I was like, oh no, how am I going to deal with all the new work coming in? And of course, zero work came in. And, the lesson there was you can ignore all the vanity metrics and you just go and get on with it. And by the time you and I spoke, which I reckon would have been May 2019, when I was in Melbourne for a conference and you made some time to chat with me, I was trying to align this weird project that people were excited about. Hey, yeah, doing case notes in a video, it's great, with the fact that it hadn't really brought in much substantial work, but I had a feeling that it would in future. And so the strategy that I think I would have run by you then, Michael, would have been to say something like, I want to bring in one big matter a year, and I want to bring in, hopefully, a lot more medium and small size matters. And the way I'll bring them in is that over time, people will have formed a relationship with me because they will have seen my face explain something to them or heard my voice explain something to them over time so much that we'll have a bit of a relationship. Then when they've got a problem that rings a bell, they'll feel much more comfortable calling me because they'll understand I have the expertise. And they'll also feel that we have a relationship because I will have taken the approach. There's those two prongs that I really like of being rigorous and of being approachable. And so my hope is, my hope then was that's going to work. And my experience now, 3 years in, which just feels mad to say, it's almost 3 years to the day that I recorded the first video, is, yeah, it works. And in part it works for that reason you raised earlier, Mike, which is I've got the knowledge at my fingertips as well. So it's not merely being a nice guy who uploads some videos. It's being someone who the chairman of your firm can just drag into a teleconference with no notice and be like, look, we have someone who understands the law right here. James, here's the position. Can you comment right now? And my answer is, yes, I can, because I'm in command of the law in this area.
Yeah.
To the extent I'm not, here are the exposures that I can then just go look into. So it's that combination of humility and confidence you get from diving really deeply into your subject area.